Chapter 51, Power of the Fans. Goofy left Ray's bar and immediately headed toward the Thieves' Union. He did not bother searching specifically for No Smile. Since No Smile's situation had become well known all over Yunjuan City, many people would now gather wherever he was at. Almost every player within the city had heard about the relentless hunter who was after No Smile's life. According to the rumors, this hunter had dropped No Smile's level from 30 to 23 in just an hour, and that he was still after No Smile even now. Because of this, the hunter, now dubbed by the public as the Masked Slayer, had attained a legendary status among the players. Many of these players wanted to witness the hunter's epic pursuit, and the most effective way to do so for them was to follow his victim, No Smile. Thankfully, Parallel World did not have a general or trade channel that players could access like in other MOOCs. Otherwise, a number of players would surely or even gladly betray No Smile's location to the Masked Slayer just to see him in action. As Goofy neared the Thieves' Union, he saw that a dense crowd had gathered in its vicinity. He squeezed through this mass of people to take a look at what they were flocking together for, and spotted No Smile and his ride-or-die buddies walking to and fro the street. A large number of players were trailing behind them dozens of meters away. Goofy was in a crowd that must have taken a detour to spectate from the other end of the street, as even the rooftops lining this very lane had quite a few people on them. No Smile was of course unhappy to be followed by the onlookers, yet he could only bear with it grudgingly. There were simply too many onlookers following him, and cursing at them would only result in him dropping a level at their hands instead of the Masked Slayer. Goofy smiled faintly. "Sorry." "Excuse me." Goofy apologized repeatedly as he stepped away from the crowd. He found himself a building and got onto its rooftop. Goofy stealthily changed into his Masked Slayer get-up behind the other players who were on the rooftop as well. He then stood on tiptoe to see over the onlookers' shoulders the exact position of No Smile. "Bro, let me through." Goofy patted the man in front of him. The person impatiently turned around, but his eyes shone brightly upon seeing Goofy. Goofy quickly signaled the man to be quiet. The man nodded his head vigorously and pressed his two hands firmly over his mouth, while tapping the guy next to him with his elbow. "What?" The guy turned around after being tapped, and his eyes shone equally brightly when he saw Goofy, prompting Goofy to signal the person to be quiet as well. The two onlookers were now nodding their heads vigorously and covering their mouths with their hands, as they tapped the next guy. In no time at all, a whole bunch of players wore a starstruck look on their faces and held their hands against their mouths, as they cleared a path for Goofy. As Goofy slowly made his way through, the players across the street spotted him as well. Their eyes also shone brightly, and Goofy had to signal them to be quiet as well. Why was it suddenly so quiet? No Smile found it odd that the large crowd's hubbub of excited conversations, which had pervaded the air a minute ago, abruptly turned into hushed talks. In fact, it was now so quiet that he could hear the disturbance in the air right above his head. No Smile quickly raised his head, just in time to see a flash of reddish light descending upon him. The glow made No Smile turn pale and he quickly found himself fleeing away from the group that had surrounded him. No Smile's buddies were nearly driven mad at this point. They had followed No Smile all this while and were taking precautions upon precautions. Seeing that a huge crowd had gathered around them, they were confident that if that person attempted to kill No Smile, they would be aware of it. And yet, they had not expected the mob of players to side with the killer, allowing him to apathetically murder No Smile in broad daylight. His buddies felt extremely aggrieved, yet they still failed to channel their anger into strength. Goofy once again escaped their pursuit easily with the help of the crowd that had conveniently prepared a path of escape for him. After a short while, Goofy found out that the crowd's pursuit was much harder to escape, as quite a few of them were capable of running abreast of him. All of them were curious about the Masked Slayer's identity. They thought that it would be easier to find this out, as well as to witness his killing, if they trailed after him instead of No Smile. Goofy fully understood how terrifying the power of fans was for the first time in his life. At this rate, No Smile's ride-or-die buddies only had to follow the mob and they would find Goofy as well. Feeling exasperated, he could only keep running like his life depended on it. After countless detours around Yunjuan City, Goofy was still unable to ditch his entourage completely, as more people meant more fan power. There were instances when Goofy had managed to shake the pursuing players off, only to bump into them again at the next street. This cycle of losing and stumbling upon the same players signified that the fans were aware of his whereabouts. But all the effort he had placed into running away bore fruit when he accidentally ran into No Smile while weaving through the streets of Yanjuan City. He unhesitatingly killed off No Smile with his Chinese broadsword once more. When No Smile faded into a beam of white light in front of him, Gufei vaguely registered something dropping onto the ground. The players behind him exclaimed in unison, his equipment dropped. But Gufei did not even bother to look at it. All were momentarily stunned, before they crazily dove toward the item that No Smile had dropped. Finding out the killer's identity was nothing compared to acquiring high-grade equipment. This was how Gufei fortuitously escaped from this bunch of fanatics. He immediately got into a secluded street, quickly took off his disguise, and finally heaved a sigh of relief. Meanwhile, July and Oathless Sword were still busy negotiating at Ray's bar. Oathless Sword had received two separate notifications about No Smile getting killed during the negotiation. Oathless Sword felt quite disturbed when he did a quick mental calculation and realized that No Smile was now at level 21. Although he was worried about his guild's reputation being tarnished by No Smile's repeated deaths, he was more terrified of the killer's might. No Smile might have turned pathetic now, but he was still an uncompromisingly capable man. That was why Oathless Sword had originally gotten No Smile to join Traversing 4 Seas, even designating him as a core member. For No Smile to not even stand a fighting chance against his killer, how would Oathless Sword fare if they traded places? Oathless Sword suddenly felt a chill come over him. Although he was the leader of a guild with 300 members in Yanjuan City, it did not mean he could bring all of them whenever he grinded for levels outside. This killer, who came and left like the wind, was someone capable of dropping No Smile's level 9 times. Simply thinking about this fact brought chill up and down Oathless Sword's spine. The fact that just one person was causing all this havoc made the matter worse. No Smile's report earlier mentioned that his party had been wiped out by 6 people. If all 6 of them were to act together, there would be no telling how frightening it could get. The negotiation tilted out of his favor as he became faint-hearted. Was there a need to expend so much energy for a level 21 player? Their lost reputation was irrecoverable after No Smile got reduced by 9 levels. Besides, those people's main target had always been No Smile alone. If the guild rallied and officially supported No Smile in this, would they shift their targets to the other players in the guild? Oathless Sword now deeply experienced the pain of being on the receiving end of animosity. After weighing the pros and cons of the matter, he finally came to a decision and heaved a long sigh. Guild leader July, we have decided to expel No Smile from the guild. The matter between you two, Traversing 4 Seas, will not have any part. What do you think of this? Oathless. The first one to be shocked by Oathless Sword's decision was Galeforce. Oathless Sword looked at him but could not find the right words to explain his decision. July and the other ladies were astonished by his decision as well. They had not expected Oathless Sword to make such a large concession to them. No Smile's expulsion from the guild meant that they were officially and figuratively washing their hands off the whole July and No Smile's business. It was equivalent to saying that Traversing 4 Seas would stay out of this problem for good. Guild leader Oathless sure has a great insight about the matter at hand. How admirable. Luo gave a very refined compliment. July was still somewhat dumbfounded. She had barely presented a solid argument in this negotiation, yet Oathless Sword decisively compromised in her favor. While this was all going through July's head, Oathless Sword and Galeforce stood up. We're leaving then. This dagger. We'll be taking it to at least give No Smile some form of explanation. July nodded her head. Oathless Sword took Zephyr's Whisper and left Ray's bar with Galeforce. Why? Galeforce asked once they had left the establishment. Our opponent is far too strong. While we were negotiating, No Smile was killed twice, Oathless Sword said. And you were afraid? Not just for me but for all of us in the guild. If they actually targeted any of us, do you think we would stand a chance? Oathless Sword said. I'm not scared of them. I'll take them all on. You may not be afraid, but what about the other guild members? How can our guild survive if all are on their toes and have no way of resolving the issue? Galeforce was speechless. Let's go. We'll return Zephyr's Whisper to No Smile to at least account for our decision, Oathless Sword said. Just who are these people? Galeforce clenched his fists in anger. It was a truly bitter pill to swallow. Remember this day. After all, Revenge is a dish best served cold. Gale Force nodded his head even though he was still enraged. In Ray's bar, July and the ladies were very excited with the new development to their problem. Without the support of the largest guild in Yunjuan City and his low level, I don't think we need to be afraid of him any longer, July said reassuringly. That killer sure is fantastic. Lila was starstruck. Sis Luo Luo, just who is he? I don't know either, Luo Luo shook her head. Besides the mercenary group leader himself, he did not reveal any information about his comrades to me. Right now, rumors are saying that the person is a mage. From what I know, he's a mage that soloed the mountain bandit leader Sato. That's too overpowered. Luo Luo, get in contact with him. Try and see if you can set up a meeting so that we can thank him personally, July said. What are we thanking him with? Our bodies, perhaps? Luo Luo snickered. What nonsense, July chided her softly. Ziu cheered all of a sudden, leaping up in celebration. What's the matter, Ziu? The three ladies were taken aback by her sudden movement. Can I go and do quests now? Ziu asked. Go ahead. But you still need to be careful, July said. Nothing to worry about. No Smile won't be able to do anything to her, he's too busy being hunted right now. Luo Luo proclaimed. Sis Luo Luo, you are here with us all this while. How come you know so much about what's happening outside? Lila was puzzled. I'm privately messaging their mercenary leader right now. He's keeping me updated, Luo Luo explained. 3 rooms away from the 4 ladies was another room. Inside, everyone was criticizing young Master Han. Come on, drink up. Why are you just sitting there in a daze? Shut up. Young Master Han snapped. I'm discussing business with the employer. This has been a tough mission, so of course I'm milking them for what it's worth. Okay, go for it. The 4 men readily agreed. Does this mean that Miles is going to take the majority of the portion again? Brother Assist asked carefully. Sword Demon nodded. It's only fair. Everyone was in the dumps. We're just a bunch of laborers. Royal God Call groaned. Miles, I hate you. Achoo. Goofy sneezed, just as he finished off No Smile for the 10th time. Man, today's been exhausting, Goofy mumbled to himself, but he was not done yet. The Masked Slayer is getting away. A scream echoed as a throng of players ran toward him, nearing him with every step. Chapter 52, Celebration. No Smile felt utterly dejected now that he had dropped to level 20. He stood listlessly inside the Thieves' Union, not making any movement. All the players nearby were gesticulating at him. You see that guy? He's originally the 11th ranked thief on the leaderboard, but now he's only a level 20 player. TSK. God damn it. What is he standing there in a daze for? Get out of the safe zone already, I still want to see the Masked Slayer in action. Ha 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 ha. I've seen him twice. I've chased after him for 5 streets. Why is he still not leaving the Thieves' Union? I can't wait any longer. All the players were anxious, hoping that No Smile would just leave the safe zone and dive headfirst into the arms of death like he had done 10 times before. Had it not been for the no physical contact rule in the safe zones, the situation tossing someone out of the safe zone to be killed that Goofy had previously described would have already happened to No Smile. The players nearby waited for the Masked Slayer, but instead saw Oathless Sword and Gale Force arrive. Just like No Smile, the 2 were core members of Traversing 4 Seas. But those players in the know were well aware that Traversing 4 Seas was actually mobilized by Oathless Sword, Gale Force, and another player called Youthful Reflection. No Smile was actually a late addition to the core. Oathless Sword and Gale Force did not say a word upon seeing the large crowd of nosy onlookers, and they just walked up straight to No Smile within the safe zone. No Smile, Oathless Sword addressed him firmly. No Smile lifted his head with a blank look on his face. I've spoken with the people from Amethyst Rebirth, Oathless Sword began to say. No Smile listened wordlessly. They have agreed to return you the dagger, Zephyr's whisper, but under the condition that you leave Traversing 4 Seas. Oathless Sword stared at No Smile intensely. What do you think? No Smile's lifeless eyes seemed to spark with life once more. That's easy. I'll leave the guild. Just add me back in once I have the dagger. Oathless Sword's eyes quickly flashed with disbelief. No Smile was truly a rotten man to come up with such a cunning scheme in a moment's notice without batting an eye. His crooked nature was made crystal clear. Oathless Sword suddenly realized that kicking this sort of person from the guild would actually be beneficial in the long run. It would be hard to accomplish anything if one of the core members had such a terrible personality. With such a thought in mind, Oathless Sword took out Zephyr's Whisper and tossed it to No Smile. "It's settled, then," Oathless Sword said with finality and turned to leave with gale force. "What do you mean?" No Smile was stunned. No Smile got his answer almost instantly. System notification: due to repeated breach of guild rules, player No Smile has been expelled from traversing 4 seas. We hope the rest of the guild members would heed this as a warning. Oathless, what's the meaning of this? No Smile yelled in anger. Whenever people got angry, they would often throw or damage things to vent their frustration. No Smile raised his hand to do just that. But when he remembered that he was holding Zephyr's Whisper, he immediately lowered his hand and put the weapon into his dimensional pocket instead. "Fuck!" No Smile roared. "Damn, so close." The crowd around him muttered in regret. Everyone had been looking forward to No Smile mistakenly tossing the dagger while he was in an emotional state. Gufei was actually among the crowd, raring for a fight with No Smile, who had been staying in the safe zone for quite some time. Since No Smile got his precious dagger back, he would be elated enough to take it out for a spin, right? In the end, No Smile kept the dagger and logged off. Ah! The onlookers once more exhaled with scorn. They all decided to take their leave now that the exciting event was as good as over. Gufei was staring dejectedly at the leaving mass of people when he suddenly received a message from July. "What are you doing right now?" "Return to the guild." Since Gufei had nothing else to do now that No Smile had gone offline, he decided to just head over to Amethyst Rebirth's headquarters. When Gufei turned up outside the guild house, he saw that many of the ladies were already gathered inside. Realizing that he was the last to arrive, he quickly stepped inside, just in time to hear July happily announced, "No Smile has been kicked out from traversing 4 seas." Gufei positioned himself by a corner and faintly smiled, watching all the ladies cheered. His heart was filled with a sense of accomplishment. "Sis Luo, it's all thanks to you for finding that mercenary group. They are so strong." "Just who are they?" many of the ladies asked curiously. Luo answered regretfully, "I've only met the group's leader, so I don't know who the rest of them are." Even when they were staging a sneak attack, their faces remained covered. "It's most likely done to fully conceal their identities." July nodded. "I originally wanted to thank them all in person as well, especially that mage of theirs. But I think it would be best if we don't make things difficult for them right now." The ladies were extremely disappointed, especially Lai, whose face was filled with regret. "I really want to know who that mage is." Gufei listened to them silently, maintaining a smile on his face. Although the ladies did not know what Gufei had done for them behind their backs, they were at least aware of what he had done in public a while ago. July clapped her hands to get the attention of everyone in the room as she spoke. "Besides Luo, who found the mercenary group, we should thank Miles regarding this matter as well. It's due to him stealing No Smile's top-grade dagger that we managed to get out of that sticky situation, as well as gave us a powerful leverage to negotiate terms with traversing 4 seas." The ladies' response was not so keen this time. The lukewarm reaction was not due to them holding Gufei in low regard, but rather because most of them had treated him coldly before. Even though he had just done them a huge favor, it would have been far too unnatural for them to suddenly approach him with great ardor. The ladies were quite a prideful bunch after all, so they were somewhat reluctant to do a 180 on their attitude toward Gufei. Thus, they were somewhat confused as to how they should thank him now. Some items were considered top grade, so some people could naturally be considered as top grade as well. Lai, who had always been biased toward Gufei, graciously changed her attitude toward him. She approached him and courteously said, "I couldn't tell before, but you ain't half bad." Gufei's face was still plastered with the same smile, as he placidly accepted her compliment by saying, "Thanks." Seeing Gufei's almost emotionless response, Lai stalked away sheepishly. July felt the awkward atmosphere as well, so she quickly announced, "Alright, now that this problem is resolved, let's be at ease and continue enjoying the game." Everyone applauded, and huddled together once more to gab about that legendary masked slayer. "Thank you." July walked toward Gufei at this moment and earnestly thanked him. "Ah, it's nothing. I may be a temporary member, but I'm still a part of your guild right now. It's only natural that we should help one another in times of trouble. Gufei smiled. July was tongue-tied. The girls in the guild had never considered Gufei as one of them, and Gufei had never acted as if he was a part of them either. Yet in such dire straits, this temporary member had actually contributed the most out of everyone in the guild. Don't mind how the girls treat you. They are just, July could not find the proper word to describe the present situation. Don't worry about it, Gufei said. If there's nothing else, I'll take my leave. Is that alright? Go ahead, July said. Gufei turned and was about to exit the guild house when July suddenly stopped him. Yes? Gufei turned his head. Where's your straw hat? Weren't you always wearing one? July questioned him. Gufei's heart skipped a beat, before he quickly replied, Hey, I was a noob back then, and was unaware that we can't simply equip whatever we want. A mage like me isn't supposed to wear a straw hat, so I threw it away. Oh. I'm off. Gufei waved goodbye as he exited the guild house. What? Are you thinking that Miles is that masked slayer? Luo went over to July's side once Gufei had left. I heard that the masked slayer wears a straw hat, a beginner mage robe, and is at level 30. Isn't that too similar to how Miles used to dress? July said. True. Plus, Miles and that guy like using swords. When Miles fought with Ziu, he wielded a sword as well, Luo commented. But Luo immediately added, Miles couldn't beat Ziu. Without my assistance, he would have died back then. Did he purposely lose to Ziu? July asked. I couldn't tell, Luo answered. If he couldn't even beat Ziu, while the masked slayer could effortlessly kill No Smile, they couldn't possibly be the same person, July surmised. Who knows? Maybe the masked slayer saw Miles' comical outfit and decided to purposely disguise himself like that to better hide his identity. Luo suggested. He's got quite the sense of humor, then, July laughed. But still, there's a possibility of Miles being the masked slayer, Luo said carefully. True. I guess we'll just find out in the future, July said. Gufei became aware of this problem as well upon leaving the Amethyst Rebirth's guild house. Due to his very unique equipment choices, July, Luo, and the rest of those who had met him before could connect the masked slayer's identity to him. This would make things seriously annoying for Gufei. He should seek young Master Han and the rest of the gang's advice regarding this. As he was pondering on this, young Master Han sent him a message. How are you doing, Mr. Slayer? No Smile went offline, Gufei replied. You should take a break after 10 kills as well. Come back to the bar. There's something important we've got to do, young Master Han said. What's that? Gufei asked. Splitting the reward, young Master Han answered. Oh, I'll be there right away, Gufei quickly said. The five were seated together awaiting Gufei inside Ray's bar. There were 10 coin pouches stacked on the table shaped like a little mountain. Open them and pour everything out. Royal God Call's voice trembled slightly. 1,000 gold coins. I want to see them piled together. It must be quite the sight. Pathetic. The other 4 men criticized him as they salivated. How much did we earn last mission? Royal God Call asked. 210 gold coins. Miles took 60, and we all took 30 each, young Master Han said. There's actually so much this time. The ladies of Amethyst Rebirth sure are rich, Royal God Call remarked. So how are we splitting it this time? Brother Assist asked. Miles put in a lot of effort this time. He'll take half and we'll split the remaining equally. What do you all think? Young Master Han asked. Sounds about right, Sword Demon nodded his head. Half is about 500 gold coins. Royal God Call felt hollow inside as he said this. 100 gold coins each isn't too bad. You should be thankful as it is. War Without Wounds said. I can finally buy myself a better weapon. Brother Assist swept the room. Among us right now, only Sword Demon's Frost Memories and Royal's Great Lunar Bow could be considered as top grade items. My bow isn't top grade, its attack power is just slightly better than the average bow. Sword Demon's dagger is the real deal, though. 30% chance of a fatal blow. If my bow had that trait, I would become an unrivaled existence. Royal God Call proclaimed. You may want to lower your voice. The King of Slayers is right behind you, War Without Wounds warned as he patted Royal God Call. Royal God Call turned around and saw Goofy standing right behind him. Chapter 53, Slayer. Ah, Mr. King of Slayers, you're back. Please have a seat. Royal God Call jumped up and offered his seat to Goofy. Goofy ruffled his hair and laughed, "That's a good boy. Oh, that's quite the pile of coins you've got there." As Goofy sat down, he finally noticed the pouches filled with in-game currency on the table. "How do you think we should split these, Miles?" Young Master Han asked nonchalantly, yet the glint on his eyes betrayed his ulterior motive. All were relatively acquainted with one another by now. Everyone had felt awkward about Goofy's acquiescence to split evenly the reward for the last mission. Right now, however, they had no such qualms and would wholeheartedly accept it if Goofy suggested the same thing again. No one sitting in this room was a pushover, well, except for Sword Demon, who occasionally displayed naivete. Very aware of this fact, young Master Han had been attempting to signal Sword Demon with his eyes of his intentions, yet Sword Demon neither showed any sign of comprehension nor even spoke a word. "Oh, what do I think?" Under everyone's gaze, Goofy started to count with his raised fingers. "Our target was No Smile, whom we killed 10 times. I killed him 8 out of those 10 times, and Sword Demon killed him twice. I suppose I should get 8 out of the 10 money pouches, while Sword Demon should get the last 2. Not bad. I support this." Sword Demon nodded sagely. "Support your mom's head." Young Master Han spat. "Using eye contact to conspire is so passé," Goofy mocked young Master Han. "We used private chat instead." "Fuck you bastards." Young Master Han continued to curse at them. "Alright, calm down. Let's just split these coins evenly." "We've all had a long day," Goofy said generously. "That's what I'm talking about." Royal God Call pounced like a hungry tiger on its prey, snatching away 2 pouches of gold coins. The others followed suit as well. Goofy felt a great sense of accomplishment once more, as well as astounded by July and the lady's affluence to afford such a large payout. Considering the amount of RMB1 that players had to pay when purchasing goods at the trade exchange and the sum that they could earn from the items sold at the auction house, the price for a single in-game gold coin was about 10 RMB. Since the game was still in the early stages, the amount of gold coins available on the market was relatively low. It was not easy for pay-to-win players to save up on gold coins either. This was because players would usually sell high-grade equipment at the trade exchange. Therefore, players who bought these pieces of equipment with real-world currency would still have a hard time trading them for in-game gold coins due to their high prices. Reaching 1,000 gold coins in savings on such economic market conditions could already be considered as impressive. To do so, players would have to use real-world currency to purchase lower-grade items that others could afford and slowly sell those cheap items in exchange for the in-game gold coins. Hence, an awful lot of perseverance was needed to accomplish all the necessary trades. By the time Goofy's thoughts returned to the present, not one money pouch could be seen on the table. "Hey, where's my share?" Goofy slapped his hand on the table. "That's weird." "Where is it?" Someone said. Brother Assist, the self-proclaimed information expert, quipped, "There are 6 of us here, and there are only 10 coin pouches, pour all out and split them evenly." Goofy demanded. "You can't completely divide 1,000 by 6. Everyone showed an awkward expression. Goofy was just about to act when young Master Han suddenly said, "Nope, everything's split correctly." "Are you kidding me? How did I end up with not a coin, then?" Goofy demanded. "Have you forgotten?" Young Master Han unhurriedly explained, "You spent 200 gold coins here drinking last night, which is coincidentally your share of today's payout. I've already footed the bill for you." 200 gold coins? Miles, what the heck did you drink?" Everyone asked in surprise. "That's not right. Brother Assist and I drank 4 glasses of liquor yesterday. The cost should only be, Where did Brother Assist go?" Goofy looked around for him. "This matter must be settled properly. I'll go bring him back." War Without Wounds stood up and left. Yet nobody returned in the end. Royal God Call slapped his thigh and said, "Ah, those 2 sly foxes must have planned this from the beginning. I'll go and drag them back." When Royal God Call exited the room, young Master Han got up as well. "You guys are far too churlish. Get back here immediately." He stepped toward the door and was about to leave when a sudden wave of heat seared near his face. Young Master Han immediately dodged backward and saw Gu Fei's flames of baptism blocking the doorway. Nice sword. Young Master Han chuckled. Today, I killed No Smile 8 times. Gu Fei stared at his Chinese broadsword and said, using NBA terms, not only am I heating up, I am practically at my peak condition. I don't believe you would dare kill me, young Master Han said nervously. Of course, I wouldn't. But don't expect to leave today without handing over my portion. Gu Fei said. Fine. Young Master Han sat back down. I'm not going anywhere. Do you think my nickname, Drinking Addict, is just for show? Ray, bring me around. The most expensive one. It's on young Master Han's tab. Gu Fei added. Come at me. Get me 2 bottles. Young Master Han hollered. Ray swiftly swooped by with 2 bottles of liquor. It was not often that he could get this sort of business. 2 bottles totaled to 240 gold coins at 120 gold coins each. Young Master Han tossed the money pouches and laughed uproariously. Now I'm poor as well. Let's see you do something about that. Ha 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 ha. Come, let us go head to head without backing down. We're both paupers now. Gu Fei smiled faintly, and reached out swiftly with his hands. The 2 bottles of liquor, which had just been served on the table, were now tucked close to his chest. What are you doing? Take them all for yourself? That's far too dishonest. Young Master Han said. Gu Fei flashed a beaming smile. Ray had already collected the payment and was about to leave when Gu Fei's hand stretched out to hold him back. Hey, Ray. How about I sell you these 2 bottles for 200 gold coins? Ray was stunned, and so was young Master Han. Won't you make such a lucrative deal? Gu Fei said as he flashed Ray his pearly whites. Ray smiled back as he dropped 2 money pouches on the table. Gu Fei deftly caught them and placed the 2 bottles into Ray's arms. I'm off. Gu Fei saluted young Master Han and fled at top speed. Fuck, fuck, fuck. Young Master Han cried in anguish, as if he had just awoken from a nightmare. Players outside the room heard his moaning and asked, Hey, Ray, when did your bar start providing sexual services? Forget about it. Sword Demon consoled young Master Han, let me buy you around. That's my pal. Young Master Han patted Sword Demon on his shoulder. Ray, get me your most. Nope, not the most expensive one. Sword Demon stabbed his dagger on the table as he slowly said, 2 bottles cost 240 gold coins. I don't have that much. Get us 2 bottles of your second most expensive liquor instead. Sword Demon shouted. At night, young Master Han, the legendary drinking addict, was alternating between weeping and drinking, as he lamented, he's a real slayer. Alright. Gu Fei went back to grinding levels after leaving the bar. Just like before, his rhythm was heavily affected by the flames of baptism's uncontrollable fire attack proc rate. Since the monsters were different from the people who had been ordered to capture him alive back then, he experienced many close encounters whenever the monsters mobbed him. Gu Fei only had to change weapon to resolve this issue, yet he did not do so. For him, this was another chance to hone his kung fu further. He did not possess a well-trained body in the game like in reality. Gu Fei's reaction speed, strength, and other factors were purely decided by the game's algorithm, so his training in Parallel World largely focused on the mind. For instance, what was the ideal course of action when dealing with different fighting scenarios? Should he counter or dodge? If he countered, which opponent should he target? If he dodged, which direction should he go? All of these required Gu Fei to determine the correct path to take in a split second. When provided with a myriad of possibilities, how would he choose the best course of action? Some people would say that it depended on instinct. Although this answer was correct, it was only partly. This was because there were actually 2 kinds of instinct, innate and acquired. In any case, Gu Fei would never dare consider himself as a consummate genius. A situation like this was hard to come by in reality as well, so the least he could do was to accumulate all these experiences diligently. Eyes on the hands, hands on the eyes. The word eyes actually referred to instantly perceiving, judging, and deciding the best course of action in a fight. This aspect could be trained in reality and in the game, yet Gu Fei never had many opportunities to experience actual combat in real life. As for the hands aspect, Gu Fei could only continue honing his body in reality. All was truly simpler in games, as everything depended on stat points and equipment. Gu Fei's efficiency at killing monsters had dropped right now, so a slight negligence on his part could lead to his death. If this were another player, he or she would most likely stop grinding under such harsh conditions. But Gu Fei was different. His reason for entering this verma varied from the average gamer. After all, for Gu Fei, the value of having high-intensity mental training was greater than leveling faster and acquiring more stat points. The damage Gu Fei could deal right now was too unbalanced. Thankfully, his past monotonous fighting tempo was adapting little by little to Flames of Baptism's 30% fire attack proc rate, making his fighting seem more alive, fluid, and unpredictable. Naturally, such evaluation was just from Gu Fei's perspective. Instead of continuing to dance with death like Gu Fei, any regular player would have simply chosen to fight the monsters one by one or changed equipment. Gu Fei grinded like this for an hour or so before ending today's gaming session. The legend that he had created lived on, however. By the time Gu Fei ended his hunt of No Smile, the matter had already made its way to the game forums. Everything had been put onto the forums from the start of his hunt to his last kill. Everyone animatedly discussed the Masked Slayer's way of hunting his victim and ability to drop his target's level by 10 in just a few hours. Many formed different opinions. Those fervent PvP fanatics naturally approved of Gu Fei's actions. Their judgment could be summarized into a word: cool. As for those worrywart, they felt immense anxiety about this event. They saw the Masked Slayer as a terrorist that fostered violence, treating the entire game as a PvP field. They were distressing about matters that did not need distressing, such as how the event would cause the game company's turnover rate to drop. Of course, a majority of the players were simply joining in on the fun and never truly thought deeply about it. All they knew was that today's hunt only ended after No Smile had gone offline. Thus, they were waiting with bated breath for the hunt to resume tomorrow. At any rate, the players were very clear about two facts. First, the Masked Slayer was immensely formidable. Rumors said that he was a mage who had used close combat techniques to kill a thief, a legendary achievement, indeed. Second, No Smile was really stupid. Everyone knew that No Smile was being hunted and that he was no match for the killer. But rather than hit offline, he had stubbornly faced the Masked Slayer, causing him to lose 10 levels, truly the epitome of stupidity. Chapter Notes: 1. RMB is short for renminbi, the official currency of China. Chapter 54, the trouble that PvP brings. Gu Fei was immediately assailed by fatigue after going offline. A regular player would never consider Gu Fei's daily gaming schedule as tiresome, so it could be said that his time online today had been very fruitful. The non-stop hunting of No Smile and the Flames of Baptism's demand for utmost concentration had mentally drained Gu Fei by several folds. He felt spent once he had slightly eased his nerves after leaving the game. It's truly tough to be an online gaming pro. Gu Fei thought of Sword Demon and the rest who spent most of their time playing the game, regardless of whether it was day or night. Their bodies could not compare to Gu Fei's since they were all nerds, yet their ability to focus on the game for a whole day was admirably beyond him. Gu Fei did not rush to get online today after a full night's rest. Instead, he casually browsed the game's official forums. He might be an undeniable combat expert in game, yet his online gaming knowledge was amateurish at best. Flames of Baptism effectively boosted his attack power, as well as provided him with an interesting training material, yet its additional fire attack's erraticity had posed quite a danger to Gu Fei. Hence, he was now searching for a method to raise the trait's proc rate by 100%. If Gu Fei could do that, he would surely become a consistent, high-attack fighter. Unfortunately, Parallel Worlds players were currently more focused on researching about the traits concerning the status effects, such as the slow effect of ice damage, paralysis effect of electric damage, and so on. Not much attention was given on researching a trait that could only cause fire attack. As for equipment traits that dealt additional magic attack, the consensus was for players to choose poison damage instead of fire damage. This was due to the lack of stats that would affect magic for close combat job classes. Poison damage was dependent on the equipment itself instead of a character's magic affinity, and it had the additional advantage of reducing the target's HP even after completing the attack. Moreover, A decent weapon with poison damage could easily exceed the potential of a weapon with fire attack. There was also another important reason: a weapon's additional magic attack trait could only be activated through normal attacks. Conversely speaking, the additional magic attack on weapons would not proc when a player incorporated skills into his or her attack. While this might not matter during a normal monster grind, it was a different case when it came to PvP or boss battles. This was because skill usage was essential in achieving victory in those fights. Thus, items with only additional magic attack trait had lower market prices, as they were pretty much considered as trash by players. No one would nationally bother researching about those garbage items. Goofy searched pages after pages of the game forums but still came up with no useful information. All he found was that besides weapons with magic attack trait, accessories like rings, necklaces, and emblems had the probability of containing the same trait as well. The in-game equipment was separated into 9 categories: weapon, helmet, body armor, belt, shoes, couple rings, necklace, and emblem. The fact that Goofy's 2 fingers and neck had remained empty despite grinding on monsters for this long was proof that the drop rate of these accessories was very low. Goofy's straw hat and shoes were not actually terrible, they were just not suitable for mages, which was why young Master Han and company had constantly criticized and pointed their uselessness. After a quick check, Goofy learned that he could buy accessories that increased the proc rate of fire attack. He decided to purchase some at the first opportunity, as well as conventional equipment to remain unnoticeable to others. Goofy left the forums after checking the items he planned to purchase. It was then that he spotted the forum's sticky thread: Yunjuan City's close combat mage, killing a man in just 10 steps, and never stopping once while pursuing his target. Gone with his name and identity once everything ended. Goofy's heart tightened as he clicked to view the thread. Just as he thought, it was a report about his hunt of No Smile throughout Yunjuan City yesterday. The players, who had kept their ears to the ground, managed to dig out almost all the relevant information about the incident. However, that was not the crux of the matter. The emphasis was on the process in which No Smile had been hunted. All the information was collated from various eyewitnesses' accounts. As the perpetrator, Goofy judged the data to be largely accurate. There were 2 main discussions that developed regarding the matter. The first discussion was about the moral implication of the masked slayer's action. This was a hot topic that had started during the live broadcast of yesterday's forums. Goofy briefly glanced at the various opinions posted on the forums and then dismissed them altogether. He did not feel a shred of guilt toward killing No Smile. No Smile swindled July 1st. When he was later defrauded by the professional con artist Ziziocean, she had done so of her volition and not because of July's sixing. Later on in Parallel World, the wretched No Smile coincidentally became Goofy and the mercenary group's latest target after he had harassed July. Goofy had destroyed No Smile with a clear conscience, so the vitriol about his actions that littered the forums did not affect him at all. The second discussion was about his fighting prowess. The news that a mage had hunted and killed a thief through close combat techniques was definitely astounding to hear. Naturally, the online players did not idle around once they had witnessed the fight. A link was immediately posted on the forums that directed players to a different thread that focused on analyzing Goofy's expert moves. Quite a number of players must have used appraisal on Goofy back then, since the post even displayed a complete list of his equipment. But the thread digressed for a bit, as everyone speculated on where Eddie's emblem came from. Its ability to increase each of the 5 different stats by 6 points for a total of 30 points made it an accessory with the highest stat point boost out of all the available in-game items. Goofy gulped when he saw this. Thankfully, he had seen this thread, otherwise, the masked slayer's true identity would be discovered with Eddie's emblem alone. July and the ladies had probably used appraisal on him before, so he would immediately be exposed if they stumbled upon this thread. However, it was unlikely that the girls would divulge this. Goofy clung to that thought at this moment. If it is revealed, Goofy could not deny how troublesome it would get. As he thought back to the string of players that had chased after him all over Yunjuan City, Goofy calmed himself down as he continued to read on. The discussion finally returned back to the thread's main topic several posts afterward, and the players began to discuss Goofy's battle skills. Through the details provided by the many onlookers, Goofy's online persona was easily deduced. an agility-based mage who possessed a weapon with additional magic attack trait. A combination of his swift movements and the said trait had allowed Gufei to almost instantly finish off the low HP thief No Smile. Many experts analyzed the character in greater detail afterward, resulting in non-stop arguments over their varying opinions. Gufei noticed a certain post by a user called Cunning Eye. This user claimed that Gufei had managed to slay No Smile purely by chance. No Smile was a strength-based thief, resulting into him losing to the agility-based mage Gufei. The thief job class had low HP to begin with, so No Smile could not withstand the physical attack and weapons fire attack from the mage. Had he been someone else with higher HP, stronger defense, or faster speed, the outcome would probably be different. Only a few players wore magic resistant armor right now. If No Smile had had magic resistant equipment at the time, the additional fire attack dealt by Gufei would be greatly weakened. Cunning Eye mentioned a detail that nobody had noticed as well. Although No Smile was killed 10 times, No Smile's first death, when he was still at level 30, had not been witnessed by anyone. His second death, when he dropped to level 29, had actually been caused by a thief. Meaning, the mage only started to hunt No Smile after the latter had dropped 2 levels. Did that mean that the mage might not have the confidence to kill No Smile off when the latter was at his peak? This analysis was logical and made complete sense, provided that it was applied to an average player. Unfortunately, Cunning Eye neglected to account for the fact that Gufei knew Kung Fu. Backed by his Kung Fu, Gufei had made short work of No Smile in every engagement with just 2 or 3 slashes. This truth was hardly noticeable to anyone but supreme experts. After reading all the replies to this post, Gufei felt somewhat disappointed. He had originally expected this post to completely research Gufei's character, yet it was just like all the other posts, a discussion that descended into an argument, becoming a match of insults and curses that was ultimately left unsettled. It seemed Gufei had to research himself the best way to make the mage character fit his expectations. After leaving the forums, Gufei went online. The first thing he did once he had gotten online was to take off Eddie's emblem. He had gained too much and wanted attention while assuming his masked slayer persona. My identity will get exposed if a bored individual on the street decides to use appraisal on me, Gufei thought. He quickly made his way to the auction house, intending to quickly buy a new set of equipment to change his image completely. However, the auction house was a little strange today. Gufei could not use any of the services, and the NPCs working there ignored him completely. Despite repeatedly trying to communicate humbly with the NPCs, they remained oddly indifferent. He felt beleaguered by what was happening. Suddenly, someone tapped his shoulder from behind. "What's the matter, Miles?" Gufei swiftly turned around and saw Brother Assist. He fortunately came across this expert here. He quickly relayed what had just happened and asked Brother Assist about it. Brother Assist stared at him in shock. "We're thinking about how crazy you were yesterday. Don't tell me you didn't know about the game's PvP rules? What is that?" Gufei curiously asked. Brother Assist hurriedly explained, "In Parallel World, anytime you kill a player, you will accumulate 1 PK1 point. At 1 park point, only certain NPCs will refuse to service you, and death will result into you dropping 2 levels. Once your park value reaches 10 points, NPCs throughout the city won't do business with you, and death will cause you to drop 3 levels. If your park value reaches 20 points, NPC guards and patrolling soldiers will arrest you on sight. Death will reduce your level by 4. While getting captured reduces your level by 2 plus jail time. At 30 park points, NPCs will just execute you on the spot, and death will drop you by 5 levels. So what should I do?" Gufei was stupefied. "Right now, you should be below 20 park points. You can just turn yourself in and sit in the jail. Every hour you're jailed will lower your park point by 1. Alternatively, you can drift about outside the city. The park point will get reduced by 1 for every 2 hours you spend outside," Brother Assist explained. "Who's going to choose to stay in prison?" "So what if I can't buy things?" "That's no big deal," Gufei said. Brother Assist nodded. "I'm afraid there's another important matter you're not aware of." "What?" "There's a sort of quest in Parallel World called Bounty Mission. This mission refreshes daily, and its target is players who have accumulated park points. It can be done alone or with a mercenary group, and the players will be rewarded according to the park points of their target. After your strong display yesterday, there's no doubt that you will be at the top of the wanted players list today. Gufei was dumbfounded. He did not expect that fighting online would be this troublesome. Chapter notes: 1. Park is short for player killing. Chapter 55. Serial number 27149. Is my identity exposed now that I'm on the wanted players list? Gufei asked. It isn't as long as you don't get caught, Brother Assist answered. Won't my name be revealed? Gufei asked. No, Brother Assist shook his head. The people on the list are assigned a serial number each. Right now, you're probably displayed as fugitive serial number XXXXX on the list. So that's how it is. Players who accept the bounty mission will have your location updated on their quest log every 5 minutes. You just have to calculate the interval properly and move every 5 minutes, and the players won't find you easily, Brother Assist said. That makes sense. I'll get moving, then. Gufei checked the time and saw that he was approaching the 5-minute mark since he got online. What do you want to buy? I'll buy it for you. Brother Assist walked toward the touchscreen interface of the auction house. Okay. Get me an appropriate level 30 mage robe, as well as a necklace, ring, and emblem that increase the proc rate of a weapon's fire attack, Gufei said. Brother Assist distanced himself from the interface while saying, It's about time. You should get out of here. Gufei did not even have time to reply. The two rushed out of the city as they left the auction house. After walking for a short distance, they heard a flurry of footsteps. Gufei looked back and saw a bunch of players heading straight toward the auction house. They can't all be after me. Gufei expressed his shock. It appears they are, Brother Assist affirmed. There are so many of them. Gufei exclaimed. Just turn yourself in, Brother Assist calmly replied. Nah. Gufei declined. Perhaps you should cover your face. With many people looking for you, there's no guarantee that a sharp-eyed player won't discover you. Those who have accepted this mission will see a conspicuous serial number marking on you, Brother Assist advised. Alright, but I'll leave the city first. There are too many pairs of eyes around, which make things difficult. Gufei hastily bolted out of the city. Brother Assist's speed was not a match for Gufei's, so he could only shout after his fleeing figure, Be careful. Gufei waved his hand in acknowledgement without even turning around. Brother Assist returned to the auction house alone. Countless players were searching the place thoroughly, with more joining in as time went by. Brother Assist thought he had a good grasp of the situation's severity, yet he had not expected Gufei to attract these many pursuers. Human's curiosity was indeed a frightening thing. Brother Assist contacted young Master Han and his fellow mercenary mates once he had left the auction house. All were extremely astonished when they heard the news. What? That guy didn't know about the PvP rules? That guy is hopeless. Meeting. We're having an emergency meeting. Young Master Han first criticized Gufei before telling everyone to meet at the usual hangout, Raise Bar. Meanwhile, Gale Force of Traversing Four Seas hurriedly sought their guild leader, Oathless Sword. Our chance is here. The main door to Traversing Four Seas guild house almost flew off its hinges when Gale Force came crashing through. Oathless Sword was currently at the lounge, conversing with a few beauties from their guild. Gale Force's abrupt interruption made Oathless Sword feel slightly annoyed. He furrowed his brows and said heavily, Conciseness is a merit. But you must remain calm even when things happen and avoid panicking. The Masked Slayer is on the wanted players list. Gale Force shouted immediately. After cutting down No Smile so many times, of course he will be on it, Oathless Sword said matter-of-factly, remaining composed in front of the babes. Come, let's go take a look. Oathless Sword suavely waved goodbye to the ladies and calmly exited the guild house. He gently closed the door behind him as he agitatedly said, Fucking hell. He's being hunted? Why did he not turn himself in and squat in prison? Won't his identity be exposed now that everyone is after him? What's the point of covering his face, then? Gale Force was speechless. Say something. Oathless Sword's hurried expression was completely different from how he had acted inside the guild house just now. I don't know either. All I heard is that the place with bounty mission released a new wanted players list with a fugitive with 15 park points. Who else could it be besides that Masked Slayer? Let's go take a look. Oathless Sword and Gale Force hurriedly strode off toward the bounty assignment hall. A large crowd had gathered in front of the bounty assignment hall's wanted players list interface. Oathless Sword's eyes swept through the crowd and noticed that many core members of the various guilds in Yunjuan City were here as well. Oathless Sword easily guessed their intentions. They hoped to befriend this powerful expert and pull the masked slayer into their guilds. Although Oathless Sword had such thoughts as well, he figured that mulling over it was pointless since nobody could tell who would receive such privilege with these many competitors. Oathless Sword turned to check the wanted players list. The masked slayer was listed high on the board. Park points, 15. Serial number 27149. Many of the people inside the hall did not immediately receive the mission as they were confident that Gufei would turn himself in. They closely observed all the players coming and going since this hall was also a place where fugitives could turn themselves in. Their eyes would periodically gleam whenever they saw a mage and then be followed by a look of disappointment. This explains why he did not turn himself in. Doing so was as good as walking straight into the lion's den. Oathless Sword mumbled to himself. Quite a few mages were entering and exiting the place, yet the serial number 27149 remained on the top spot. In one corner of the hall, July, Luo, and Lai Lai were observing the human traffic as well. Ah, that one. That's definitely him. He's wearing a beginner robe. Lai Lai boomed as she pointed to a player for the 17th time. Luo appraised the player and sighed. Lai, a pro may not necessarily be handsome, so curb your wishful thinking and stop calling my attention to every good-looking mage here. That last one is only at level 12. Oh. How long have we been here, anyway? July asked. Close to half an hour, Luo answered. Is it possible that he does not intend to turn himself in? July wondered. That can't be. With a park value of 15. He'll have to drift outside the city for 30 hours. Doesn't he have to go offline? If he goes to a designated log-off point, any player who has taken the bounty mission might manage to kill him off before he reaches the safe zone, Luo said. How else would you explain why he hasn't shown up yet? July swept her gaze across the wanted players list. Maybe he has predicted that there'll be plenty of people waiting for him to surrender himself, so he found a place to while his time away instead. Luo suggested. Oh, guess we've got to wait a bit more, then. They held on to that sort of mentality as they patiently waited until it was past an hour. Ah, it's just a priest, Lai exclaimed as she pointed at the most beautiful individual she had seen by far. Luo followed Lai's gaze and her eyes shone. Luo gently tugged at her friends as she indicated the same person and whispered into their ears, that's young Master Han. Young Master Han circled the bounty assignment hall once and left quickly. Luo dragged July and Lai and stealthily followed him. Young Master Han walked at a slow pace. Once he crossed 2 streets and got onto an isolated alley, he abruptly turned around. The 3 ladies quickly hid in a corner when they saw him turn. Stop hiding and just come out. Someone's already watching your every move. Young Master Han called out. Don't move. He's bluffing, Lai said. He's not bluffing. A clear voice sounded from behind the 3 ladies. The ladies were dumbfounded. Lai looked back and immediately felt bewildered. Did you guys hear someone speak? July stood still and looked behind them, sighing into the air. There's a thief on stealth behind us. Can you all come out now? Young Master Han called out once more. The 3 walked out from behind the corner restlessly. Lai hurled some punches and kicks behind her, yet she struck nothing solid. You're pretty careful to actually have someone trail you, Luo complimented. Young Master Han ignored her praise and coldly stated, our deal ended yesterday. That's true. But a new deal can always be made, Luo reasoned. We're busy right now to accept any new deal, young Master Han bluntly said. What could you be busy with? Luo asked. Young Master Han chuckled dryly. Do you have to ask? Since the whole thing started because of us, we feel obliged to offer our assistance, July said sincerely. Miss, our service has been paid at a reasonable rate by you. You don't owe us anything. Everything happening right now is our group's business. We don't need you to worry about us. Please take back your kind offer and just be on your way. Young Master Han turned and prepared to leave after saying this. Young Master Han, Lai Lai hastily shouted. Young Master Han stopped mid-step. We know your name and appearance. Aren't you afraid that we'll leak this out? Lai Lai hollered. Lai Lai. July and Luo Luo did not expect Lai Lai to say such a thing. Are you threatening me? Young Master Han turned around and stared at Lai Lai. No. What I meant is, since you're okay with us knowing your identity, then why aren't you fine with letting us know the other members of your group as well? We'll surely keep it a secret. Lai Lai promised. Young Master Han laughed and said to July, you should ask your guild leader. I believe she'll understand my intention. July froze on the spot. Stop following me. My personality isn't that great and I'm having a bad day, so I may lose my temper. I'll give you a friendly advice. Don't acquire the bounty mission just to find out his identity. He's cruel and will not go easy on anyone. He's a real killer. Young Master Han was filled with resentment as he grinded his teeth over these last few words, turning to leave once more. He is far too arrogant. Lai Lai said indignantly. Miss, it's not polite to speak ill of someone behind his back, the unseen person suddenly quipped. Why are you still here? Lai Lai stamped her feet in anger. Scram, you voyeur. She threw kicks and punches in the air once more. Let's go, Lai Lai. July dragged Lai Lai along. So are we taking the mission, Sis July? Luo Luo asked. Of course, we're taking it, July said decisively, but we're not after his identity. We'll try to see how we can be of help to him. Chapter 56, A Quick Strike Team. Gu Fei had been wandering outside Yunjuan City for about an hour. He did a mental calculation based on the stuff he had done to No Smile and guessed that his park value must be at 15 points right now. Brother Assist had said that he would have to spend 30 hours online to clear off all the park points. During these 30 hours, Gu Fei would have to evade capture from the other players who had taken the bounty mission. Otherwise, he would be required to squat inside a jail for another 15 hours. That would mean a full 15 hours of idle time due to Parallel World's full immersion system. Fugitive players like him could not clear out their park points simply by logging off and doing something entertaining in reality. Hence, Gu Fei firmly made up his mind to wander about outside the city to clear off his park points. Gu Fei walked at a fast pace while killing the monsters along the way. He did not find himself in a dangerous situation yet since he had been on the move. There was this one time when he heard players' voices from afar, yet those players started fighting one another for some unknown reason. Gu Fei supposed that the two groups were rivals and had bumped into one another by accident, so they chose to clash among themselves and add themselves onto the wanted players list instead of chasing after Gu Fei. Gu Fei felt pressured as time went by, however. There were not a lot of players chasing after him at first, since a large portion of them had stayed near the bounty assignment hall, thinking that he would surrender himself in. Those players hoped to have an easy time catching him by waiting at the hall. But after an hour of waiting at the hall and seeing that the serial number 27,149 had remained on top of the wanted players list, many of them finally decided to head out. Many guilds and mercenary groups began investing manpower into capturing Gu Fei. Everyone headed toward the Masked Slayer's latest coordinates. Among this mass of players was the #1 guild in Yunjuan City, traversing 4 seas. The 3 core members, Oathless Sword, Gale Force, and Youthful Reflection, led a large portion of their guild members outside the city and arrived at Gu Fei's latest reported location. Unfortunately, Gu Fei had already left the place a few minutes ago. The whole area immediately became flooded with players. After a while, the players, groups, and guilds each rushed to different directions based on their intuitions of where Gu Fei had headed next. It's really troublesome with so many people around. Even if the target left any tracks behind, they would all be disturbed. Youthful Reflection swept an irritated gaze over the horde of players busying around the area. How do we begin our search? Oathless Sword asked. Suppose that he's a level 30 mage with full agility stats. His agility should be at 30 points, plus another 30 multiplied by 5, totaling to 180 points. The forums have revealed all his equipment. He's got an accessory called Eddie's Emblem, which adds another 6 points to agility, bringing everything up to a total of 186 points. As the growth rate of a mage's agility is neither reduced nor strengthened, his fastest movement speed should be at 6.2 meters a second. Adding his light boots into the equation would further improve his movement speed by 5%, making his average speed to be at 6.51 meters a second. Assuming he's running in a straight line, his next updated coordinates should be at about 1,953 meters away. A human sight can identify another person within the range of 2,000 meters, so provided that our line of sight isn't blocked, we should be able to spot him, youthful reflection thoroughly deduced. So what do we do now? Now, there are 3 minutes and 47 seconds left before his coordinates refresh. At most, his distance from our current location would be 1,477.77 meters away. Everyone should look toward a direction that isn't blocked for a figure that is running away. Youthful reflection smiled. Everyone began looking around. Nothing. Huh? That means the path he has chosen is either Yunwu Forest or Oolong Mountain Range. Youthful reflection pointed toward the two different areas in front of his eyes. So what do we do? Oathless Sword consulted youthful reflection once more. You guys can just call this off, youthful reflection answered. What? Frankly speaking, he doesn't need to run. His speed alone is enough to leave a majority of the players chasing after him in the dust. Anyone with agility-based physique, follow me. Youthful reflection ordered. A few guild members stepped forward. They were either thieves or archers. Oh, yeah, I almost forgot. You need to be at level 30, youthful reflection added. 2 players retreated immediately. Archers who have above 150 agility stats can join in as well. Youthful reflection shouted toward them. One person raised his hand and joined the smaller group. Youthful reflection eyed the 3 archers and 2 thieves and nodded his head. We're the only team that stands a chance in capturing the masked slayer. Let's go. Shit. That's it for us? Galefor stared dejectedly at the team of 6 that departed toward Oolong Mountain. Youthful reflection is right, we wouldn't stand a chance if the mage concentrated on running. Oathless Sword touched his heavy armor. I can't just accept this. I'll try to search around the area. Maybe, I'll be fortunate enough to bump into him. Galeforce clenched his fists as he ran off alone. Let's not part yet. Oathless Sword turned around and addressed the remaining guild members. Since we've accepted this mission, we'll form teams of 5 and choose a random place to grind. If one of you catches sight of 27,149, don't reveal yourself. Act nonchalant and call for reinforcement on the guild channel. Silently encircle him when the backup arrives. Got it? All nodded their heads, divided themselves into 5 teams, and headed to separate directions. Youthful reflection brought the 5 men up the mountain in haste. The coordinates for the masked slayer refreshed when they were halfway up, showing that the mage's location was indeed somewhere up Oolong Mountain. We're faster than him, so we'll easily catch up to him provided that we've got the right direction, youthful reflection confidently said to everyone. The others nodded their heads. The archer with 150 agility stats was presently lagging behind the other 5 by quite a few meters. Do we have to bring him along? The 4 men in front asked one another. Youthful reflection smiled. An extra pair of hands is always welcome. Although he's slightly slower than us, he's definitely up to par with that mage's speed. With that, youthful reflection turned to the archer. Stay close to us. The archer nodded his head. They quickly made their way to the mage's latest coordinates, which happened to be a forked road. The left path led to Oolong Cave, whereas the straight path would go through the Oolong Mountain Range. None of them knew where that straight path would lead. Which way now? It would be great if that mage headed forward. It's a straight road, so we would catch up to him sooner or later. But I doubt he would choose such a rigid path. Let's just head into Oolong Cave. If the next coordinates indicate that we're in the wrong direction, we'll just head back here and take the straight path. There are only 2 choices to pick from, anyway. Youthful reflection reasoned. But what if he turns back by then? Someone asked. If he turns back, he'll bump into the other players heading to his current position. He can't possibly be that dumb, right? With a 5-minute refresh rate, he won't dare turn back. Youthful reflection laughed. Alright, let's go. Every second counts. The team turned left and hurried along the path to Oolong Cave. They dashed all the way to the cave's entrance, yet they had not seen any signs of the masked slayer. Youthful reflection looked at the time and said, if we've made the right choice, the only place left for him to hide would be inside the cave. Oolong Cave's route is complex. It's a good hiding choice with many players hot on his heels. He can even grind his level along the way. But he has underestimated the number of players after his head. The players tracking him can easily wipe out the monsters inside the cave with sheer numbers alone. It's a dead end for him now that he has chosen to hide in here. Youthful reflection waxed loquaciously, yet he showed slight hesitation. At this rate, our strike team won't be of much use. So what do we do now? Wait for reinforcement? Someone asked. Of course not. We've already expended this much effort to gain lead. We're going in. Youthful reflection waved his arm and everyone entered the cave. After a short while, the new coordinates for the target refreshed. Youthful reflection glanced at the location indicated and laughed. Impressive. I finally understood his intention. And that is? The people around him asked. If we've not entered Oolong Cave and only chased after his coordinates, I'm afraid we'd never be able to find him, Youthful reflection said. Why's that? The game has two different maps for inside and outside the cave. Each map has separate coordinates, yet the coordinates displaying his whereabouts do not specify whether he is inside or outside the cave. This is probably something that needs to be patched. The people outside the cave right now will probably look for him all over Oolong Mountain according to this new set of coordinates, but I guarantee that they'll never find him, Youthful reflection explained. The masked slayer must have already let his guard down by now. Let's not let this opportunity slip away, Youthful reflection said firmly. The six began to head deeper into the cave toward the updated coordinates. Along the way, they realized that all the monsters had more or less been taken care of by the masked slayer. Youthful reflection felt ecstatic. He's definitely convinced that he's in the clear, so he began grinding his level. We'll catch up to him in no time. Everyone, prepare to engage the masked slayer at any time. Ha ha ha. He barely left any monsters along the way. Isn't this the same as directing us straight to him? They made their way to the indicated location, which was along the path of the killed off monsters. The coordinates refreshed once more, and Youthful reflection felt stunned by what he saw. What's the matter? Let's carry on. The coordinates are wrong. Youthful reflection blurted out. What? The new coordinates are far from the previous coordinates. The path ahead still has signs of his battle with monsters. How did he cover such a distance while fighting the monsters? What do you mean? Oolong Cave has another floor. Youthful reflection realized after a bit. Oh, where's that? Everyone asked. None of them had ever been here before. I don't know. I've never heard of this. Youthful reflection furrowed his brows. Let's just carry along this path. The signs of battle here could not be faked, right? Someone suggested. The fallen corpses on the ground pointed out the direction Goofy had taken. I guess that's the only choice we have. Youthful reflection led everyone onward until the signs came to a sudden halt. The way to that floor must be somewhere around here. Everyone, spread out and search. Youthful reflection ordered. Everyone spread out and searched around. Someone quickly found something and excitedly hollered, "There's a secret entrance here." Where? Youthful reflection, who happened to be on the other side of the pathway, quickly made his way over. As they lifted the iron plate, a tunnel about a man's height was revealed. Thief, activate your stealth and go down to take a look, Youthful reflection commanded. The thief dropped down the passageway and sent a message after a while. This must be it. This must be the coordinates from before. That guy indeed walked this way. Let's go. Youthful reflection quickly jumped down, and the rest followed suit one by one. Ah! A sudden scream echoed just as the last person was about to jump down. What's the matter? Everyone in the passageway asked in shock. Their answer was the sound of a heavy plate falling into place. Oh, no. The color drained from their faces and they rushed back to the tunnel's entrance. Unmistakably, a heavy iron plate was now blocking their way out. The five combined their strength to push the iron plate upward, but it would not even budge. They knew that it had been locked from the outside. We've been tricked. Youthful reflection felt dumbfounded. Chapter 57, Escape. Youthful reflection knew that he had been fooled, yet he did not know when it had started. Had this trap been set up by the masked slayer upon entering Oolong Cave and realizing that some players were still after him? Or had he planned to direct pursuers over here from the start? Can we push it open? Youthful reflection asked. A thief, who had already given up on pushing the plate upward, shook his head sadly. Who's left outside? Youthful reflection looked at the other four with him. Royal God Call. He didn't jump down, Someone replied. He must have been killed off by that guy, youthful reflection assumed as he sighed deeply. He's still killing players despite having 15 park points? Someone asked in astonishment. It's precisely because he has 15 park points that he's not reluctant to add one more point. Youthful reflection replied. Something's off. The guild tab shows that Royal is still at level 30, this means that he hasn't died. Someone voiced out his discovery. Quickly message him. A few of them shouted. I'm not dead. He slashed me once, locked the iron plate, and ran off. Royal God call messaged back. Locked? Yup. The entrance has a padlock, which he locked. How am I going to open it? Royal God call asked. Since the masked slayer can open this passageway's entrance, it means that he has the key. Quickly get someone to chase after him. Youthful reflection yelled. He then frantically spread the word on the guild channel about the masked slayer's location in Oolong Cave. At this moment, Gufei and Royal God call just exited Oolong Cave. That you cried out earlier isn't good, Gufei commented. Yeah, I thought so, too. I almost burst out laughing back then, and it nearly turned into ha. You think this is easy for me? Royal God call asked cheekily. The two followed the mountain path leading down and a few figures appeared into view near the forked road. How was it? Brother Assist immediately asked as soon as the two were within earshot. Of course everything's okay. Royal God call felt pleased with himself. HMPH. Youthful reflection is still far off from being able to mash wits with me. Young Master Han laughed coldly. His face darkened when he faced Gufei. Why didn't you follow the exact coordinates I've set for you? Are you kidding me? The coordinates you set were either a huge sinkhole or on a stalagmite. How am I going to stand on that? Are you trying to get me killed on purpose? Gufei retorted. Alright, there's no time. Let's get to the next step of our plan. Sword Demon interjected. Once Sword Demon mentioned this next step, Gufei became a little teary-eyed. Can I not go? No. You have to go. Young Master Han sounded resolute. Hey, are you thinking of pranking me once more? Gufei expressed his suspicion. Young Master Han replied icily. This is definitely the best method to escape from those who are hot on your heels. Everyone will definitely stop chasing you if you run along this path through the Oolong mountain range. How much longer until the coordinates refresh? Brother Assist asked. 9 seconds, Gufei answered. Time to go. Brother Assist patted him on the back encouragingly. Good luck. Sword Demon came forward and patted him as well. You can do it. Royal God call also joined in and patted him on the back. MHMM. War Without Wounds did not say a word beyond a purposeful nod. Scram. Young Master Han felt irritated just by looking at Gufei's face. I'm off. Gufei saw the coordinates refresh and immediately ran down the mountain path. He won't meet anyone else along that road, yeah? Royal God call muttered. Definitely not, young Master Han said confidently. The coordinates he left in Oolong Cave fooled everyone into looking for him on the other side of Oolong mountain range. They'll need at least 10 minutes to get to our current position. That's not right, Royal God call cried out. Why will it take them 10 minutes? Miles has his coordinates updated every 5 minutes. They'll be searching around the first coordinates for 5 minutes, before discovering that the coordinates have been updated. And then, they'll proceed with haste toward the second coordinates. They'll actually need 12 minutes, young Master Han corrected his previous deduction. Royal God call felt confused, and what about the third coordinates? Young Master Han had a pained expression. If they move toward the third coordinates before even reaching the second coordinates, they'll simply come to the mountain's dead end after 4 minutes. And then what's next? Next, they can only turn back. But by then, Miles will be on his fourth coordinates. Exactly, young Master Han nodded, but they still have to go back to the second coordinates before they can carry on chasing after him. Not even I can calculate how much time it will take them to run back and forth like this. They'll have my utmost admiration if they still persist on pursuing him at that point. That's terrible. Royal God call sighed. Others have it way worse. Young Master Han lifted his thumb and pointed back to the cave's entrance some distance away. Those guys will be looking for Gufei using the coordinates in Oolong Cave. You can't really blame me for being excessive, right? They turned and watched the traversing forces reinforcement march under Ruthless Sword's command up the mountain path toward them. Oh, Yeah, I still have to lead those guys to where the trapped youthful reflection and company are and save them, Royal God Call suddenly remembered. Do you have the key? Brother Assist asked. Nope, Royal God Call answered. Then, where's the key? Everyone asked. It's in the secret passageway, Royal God Call replied. In the secret passageway? They were all puzzled. Yeah, Miles said he had thrown it in there, Royal God Call said. So how are you going to get them out? Only the honest sword demon was thinking about this problem. I don't know. I am only going in there once more because I am kind of obliged to do so. Come to think of it, I think I might have forgotten the way to the secret passageway already, Royal God Call said as he waved to the four men. I'm going there now. He then rushed down the mountain path after saying goodbye to them. As he ran down the path, he shouted, Guild leader. Bad news. Reflection and the rest are trapped in an underground tunnel. Let's leave, too. The four began to make their way down as well. I wonder where that road leads? Brother Assist asked inquisitively, referring to the path Gu Fei had just taken. You can ask that to Miles when he returns, young Master Han said lightly. Can Miles bear to stay online for 30 hours? He usually plays Parallel World for 3 or 4 hours at most, Brother Assist asked. That's his problem, young Master Han replied. Hope there won't be any issue, Brother Assist said. There won't be. Sword Demon was confident. War Without Wounds nodded. Our group won't be accepting any requests until Miles returns. Take a vacation, everyone. You're on your own for the time being, young Master Han said. Gu Fei was running quickly along the Oolong mountain range at the moment. The mountain road was rough and wide, with the mountain sheer on the left and a cliff on the right. A cloud-like mist hung in the air on the road in front and behind him. No monsters for Gu Fei to kill could be seen on this road, making the entire trip rather boring. Gu Fei decided to increase his pace in the hope of immediately reaching a new map where he could grind in. News spread in Yunjuan City an hour later, stating that the various players, groups, and guilds had returned to the city one after another. They all declared their intention to abandon the bounty mission. A lot of these players suffered from short-term trauma as a result of their recent experience. Whenever they heard positions being called out with numbers, they would immediately go catatonic. Some even suffered a more severe case of trauma, where they would snap easily whenever people in the taverns called certain table numbers aloud. Traversing 4 Seas had it the worst. They did not even catch a glimpse of the masked slayer after searching all over Oolong Cave and were rather helpless regarding that rusted padlock. Youthful Reflection and the 4 players with agility-based physiques, who had been trapped in that cramped tunnel for quite a while, decided to make their way to the other end of the passageway in the hope of finding an alternate exit. What they discovered there was the mountain bandit leader Sato's lair, and what happened afterward was more or less expected. This nightmarish experience was made even more unbearable by the series of events that followed. Just as Youthful Reflection and the 4 were sent back to the spawn point, Oathless Sword announced on the guild channel, the henchman guarding the passageway had respawned and was successfully beaten. They now had the key and could free Youthful Reflection and the rest who were trapped inside. Meanwhile, the other guild members searching for the masked slayer deep within Oolong Cave were all wiped out by the bandits that Sato had summoned over upon getting into a fight with Youthful Reflection and company. By the time the players of Traversing 4 Seas left Oolong Cave, they were all physically and mentally worn down. Gu Fei carefully read the news that the other mercenary group members had sent him, while making his lonely way through the mountain range. Suddenly, Gu Fei spotted the blurry outline of a humanoid figure in the fog just ahead. Finally, a monster has appeared after walking for so long. Gu Fei felt excited. He limbered up his body and pulled out flames of baptism from his dimensional pocket as he charged forward. Gu Fei began to see the silhouette more clearly as he drew nearer. He had yet to recognize the figure, but the sack that the person was carrying looked surprisingly familiar. Gu Fei deduced the person's identity after getting close enough, and he took the piece of black cloth off his face. Ziu? Gu Fei probed by calling out her name. The warrior with the sack turned around. Who else could it be but Ziu? Miles. Ziu was equally shocked. What are you doing here? Are you on a quest? Yes, quest. I'm definitely on a quest. Gu Fei nodded with relief. He was thinking of how he should answer Ziu's question, yet she had actually given him the answer to it. Oh, are you headed to Yaguang village? Ziu asked. Yup. Gu Fei casually replied, all the while wondering inside where in the world that place was. That's wonderful. So am I. Ziu said. Is that so? That's great. Gufei said. Shall we go there, together? Ziu asked. Let's, Gufei answered. What quest are you doing? Ziu asked. Oh, Eddie's mission, Gufei replied offhandedly. What sort of quest is that? Ziu felt curious. It's a chain quest, Gufei replied. Chain quest? Ziu exclaimed. You got a chain quest? I got it by chance. Gufei did not know how to explain properly how he had acquired the quest. I'll help you, Ziu declared. Well, I'm still not sure how to proceed with it, so I'm just trying things out by going to Yeguang village, Gufei said. Of course chain quest won't be easy to accomplish. But now that I'm here to help you, there's nothing to worry about. I am a quest expert, after all. Ziu thumbed her chest as she said this. Chapter 58. Crossing the Oolong mountain range. Gufei decided to consult the self-proclaimed quest expert. Ziu, do you know what kind of quest Eddie's mission is? Every chain quest is unique. Obviously, I wouldn't know anything about yours, you dummy. Ziu said. Gufei felt very aggrieved. Was there anything worse than being called a dummy by such a klutz? But I do know of a quest called the Kidnapped Eddie. Not sure if yours and that are related, though, Ziu thought aloud. Tell me more about it, Gufei requested. The wandering hero, Eddie, had been ambushed by the mountain bandits while passing through Oolong Mountain and was imprisoned by their mountain bandit leader Sato. Find a way to save him, Ziu recited. Oh, have you accepted that quest before? Gufei asked. Nope, I just heard about it in passing. No one has managed to finish it because nobody knows where Eddie is being kept. Ziu said. It's in Sato's hut. Gufei blurted out. How do you know that? Ziu questioned. The Eddie from my quest is the same Eddie that you just mentioned. Of course, I'll know where he'd been hidden, Gufei reasoned. Oh, new info. I better write this down. Ziu dropped the sack in an instant and took out a little booklet with a quill pen from her dimensional pocket. Gufei moved closer and saw Ziu write on the booklet, Eddie is in Sato's hut. Sato's hut? Was Eddie inside his bedroom? Ziu suddenly turned around to ask Gufei this. That must be. Gufei answered. Why did he keep Eddie in his bedroom? Ziu thought aloud, were there some untold secrets between those two? Oh, maybe, Gufei said. Something like Brokeback Mountain? Ziu widened her eyes. Perhaps. You think so, too? Ziu was visibly elated. Gufei did not comment further, as he saw Ziu conscientiously write down another line of sentence at the corner listing Eddie's information. He noticed that she ended it off with, he has an affair with Sato. Alright, let's carry on. After writing all this, she put away the booklet and lifted the sack once more. What's in the sack? Gufei patted it lightly. Food, Ziu replied. Food? Gufei felt shocked. I don't know how long it'll take to get to Yeguang village, so I brought some food in case I get hungry along the way, Ziu stated matter-of-factly. Players would definitely feel hungry after staying in Parallel World for long periods of time. Yet the hunger they felt in-game was actually them feeling hungry in reality. Naturally, one would have to consume actual nourishment, and not in-game food, in reality to satiate this hunger. All the in-game food only served the purpose of recovering HP and replenishing stamina while a player rested. And even if the food would come in handy, there was no need to bring a whole sack of it. A whole sack of food. Gufei reckoned that the food supplies could last them through an expedition if they were careful with their food consumption. However, he was doubtful that this so-called Yeguang village would require them to travel as far as 25,000 miles. It's not just food. There's also water. Are you thirsty? Want to drink some? Ziu immediately followed up Gufei's query with an invitation, placing down the sack to retrieve some water for him. No thanks. I'm not thirsty, Gufei hurriedly stopped her. In a flash, the two had walked for an hour, and they pretty much exhausted every possible conversation topic out there. Conversing with Ziu was actually difficult. For instance, Gufei had to give her 3 minutes to process a joke he had just told. In that time, he would have already forgotten the point of telling the joke. And when it was Ziu's turn to tell a joke to Gufei, he could not find anything funny about it at all. This was because it would always go along this line. I have a friend. One day, he walked into a tree, ha 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 ha. Ziu would burst into peals of laughter before she even finished telling the joke. Gu Fei could only eke out a fake smile at this. Nevertheless, no trip, no matter the distance, would be too tiring if a person was accompanied by someone. As long as there was someone to share the experience, foolish or not, it would be comforting enough. Through their concerted effort, they finally got past the Oolong mountain range. Rolling plains, wildlands, hills, and forests were displayed before their eyes, much like what players of Yunjuan City would expect to see when they left its borders. Gu Fei looked at the time and realized that it had taken them almost 3 hours to get through the Oolong mountain range. Of course, once he had realized that he was no longer being pursued by people from the city, he matched his pace with Ziu's and no longer madly dashed forward. But the sight of monsters ahead was what truly pleased Gu Fei. Young Master Han and the rest's plan for him was exactly this: escape into a place where there would be monsters but had few players roaming about. Gu Fei would then grind there for up to 30 hours and would only return to Yunjuan City once he cleared off all the park points. Gu Fei had originally thought that there would be monsters along the Oolong mountain range, yet all he encountered were clouds of mist. Although he had the company of a lady through the foggy environment, she was someone who had claimed to be his brother. Hence, there was not even a hint of romance in the air. Gu Fei truly felt that he had been done some injustice by making him cross the mountain path for 3 hours. Gu Fei's hands were already itching for a fight. He rushed forward after taking out the Chinese broadsword and slashed deeply into the monster, killing it instantly. The monster was obviously low level, as it had been insta-killed by Gu Fei's attack without the additional fire attack proxing. This can't be right, Gu Fei muttered to himself. Basic gaming logic dictated that the further players went from cities like Yunjuan City, the better the grinding maps would be. And yet, he found himself in the opposite situation in an unknown distant place after spending 3 hours to pass through the Oolong mountain range. Could things get any more depressing? Why are the monsters over here so low level? Gu Fei complained to Ziu. Ziu did not hear Gu Fei's words as she was busy looking into the horizon while mumbling, "Where is Yeguang village? Do you know?" Ziu turned her head and asked Gu Fei. I'll help you ask." Gu Fei felt impressed by Ziu's boldness to spend 3 hours crossing the Oolong mountain range without knowing her actual destination. Thus, he decided to help her out by asking around. Gu Fei pulled up his friends list. He knew someone who had an even greater information network than Brother Assist, the bona fide information expert. Fleeting smile. "Are you there? I've got something to ask you," Gu Fei began. "I am a scrupulous gaming employee." Fleeting smile stated immediately. "Is this an auto reply?" Gu Fei asked. "No. Why do you always say that line, then?" Gu Fei bemoaned. "Because you know my real identity," Fleeting Smile answered. "You revealed it yourself. Should I silence you for good and leave no traces behind, then?" Gu Fei was left speechless, not knowing how to reply to such a question. "What's your question?" "I'll tell you if I can," Fleeting Smile finally relented. "Oh, do you know the way to Yeguang village?" "It's just pointing out which way, so it's okay for you to reveal it, right?" Gu Fei asked. "So you found a clue for that chain quest?" Fleeting Smile remarked. "What clue?" Gu Fei was puzzled. "I didn't say anything," Fleeting Smile replied. "How do I get to Yeguang village?" "You can't even tell me that? It's pretty far. First, you have to pass through the Oolong mountain range," Fleeting Smile answered. "I'm past that." "Wow, it must have been tough for you to run that far." Fleeting Smile commended Gu Fei. "Where do we go from there next?" Gu Fei asked. "Next? Find someone and ask that person. The players over there should have an idea." Fleeting Smile said. "Players? There are players here?" Gu Fei looked all around him and saw no one. "You've just passed the mountain range, yeah? It's still far from the capital city. Head in the northwest direction and you'll reach Y City. The players in that city definitely know how to get to Yeguang village," Fleeting Smile instructed. "If it's this far from this region's city, why is the monster's level so low?" Gu Fei questioned. "Ornamental, those monsters are just ornamental." "Who'd be bored enough to run in that direction?" Fleeting Smile asked rhetorically. "Alright, thanks." Gu Fei got the answer he wanted. "No problem. But I'll remind you of something," Fleeting Smile added. "What?" Gufei asked. Bounty mission is valid throughout the entire gaming server. That means players from Y City can see your serial number 27,149 on their wanted players list. Since it's indicated that you're a player in Yanjuan City, nobody will bother to accept the mission. But that's not a guarantee, don't you think? So try to be careful, Fleeting Smile warned. Aren't you going against the rule here? Gufei teased. This isn't going against the rule. Anyone who seriously reads the introduction regarding bounty mission will know of this. Just treat me like a conscientious player, Fleeting Smile replied. Much thanks, then. I'll treat you to a drink when I get back to Yanjuan City, Gufei promised. You're welcome. Alright, that's all. I've to go. Gufei closed the conversation window. God damn it. My tongue slipped. Fleeting Smile muttered to himself. He was currently in Yanjuan City, having not stopped monitoring Gufei's activities. He had even passionately followed Thousand Miles Drunk's hunt for No Smile yesterday. Actually, the progress of Gufei's chain quest was what he had specifically been monitoring. Chain quests were a major feature of Parallel World. The design team had sacrificed a copious amount of their brain cells to conceive, sequence, and create each one of those chain quests. Hence, Fleeting Smile and the rest of the R&D department considered them as their magnum opus. Just thinking about the potential events and plot twists that could happen in a single chain quest had them beside themselves with anticipation. Upon learning that Gufei had gotten a chain quest, Fleeting Smile immediately checked the data files for it and committed the possible permutations this randomly generated quest could have into his memory. However, the actual owner of this quest, Gufei, had yet to make any progress on it at all. The sense of anxiety that gripped Fleeting Smile's heart was akin to creating a masterpiece that no one could appreciate or care. Therefore, Fleeting Smile had instinctively shown elation upon hearing Gufei's question about Yagwang Village. He assumed that Gufei had managed to find the clue to continue the quest. Alas, that was not the case, and his blunder actually provided Gufei information instead. Fleeting Smile instantly felt miserable when he recalled this and could only hope that Gufei had not noticed. However, how could the quick-witted Gufei not notice Fleeting Smile's slip of the tongue? As he and Ziu made their way toward Y City, Gufei carefully digested that bit of information. Chapter 59, How Things Are in Y City. Fleeting Smile unintentionally said something about Gufei finding a clue to the chain quest, Eddie's mission, when the latter had asked for directions to Yagwang Village. Because of this slip of the tongue, Gufei somewhat deduced that a link to the chain quest existed in that village. Gufei always thought that finding out the mission Eddie had taken would unravel as well as help continue the chain quest. By the looks of things, the clue was of Eddie either passing through that village once or being an inhabitant of that place. It was easy to find out which of these two the clue was. Gufei only had to ask the NPCs in that village about Eddie. Gufei considered all this as he and Ziu steadily walked toward the city. The outline of Y City could be seen from their current location, and it looked rather unremarkable, just like Yanjuan City. Ziu had a dumbfounded look on her face as she pointed at the city. That's a really big village. Gufei did not know whether to laugh or cry at her comment. That's not Yagwang Village but Y City. It's just like Yanjuan City. We'll ask the locals for direction to Yagwang Village since it's probably nearby. Gufei looked around and spotted a few players engaging the monsters scattered about. The area was apparently not a popular grinding map. Seeing that there were not many players around, Gufei chose a random player and walked toward him with Ziu. This player wore the signature clothes for thieves and ran with brisk footsteps. He avoided half of the monsters he encountered instead of confronting them. The player would also bend over from time to time as if he was searching for something on the ground. Gufei and Ziu chased the person as they yelled to get his attention. "Hey, buddy, what's your name?" Gufei asked as soon as they caught up to the player who had stopped running. "Master Kang," the player replied as he examined the two. "Ha ha 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 ha. Your IGN is the same as that instant noodle brand." Ziu chortled. This sort of joke was right up her alley. Instead, a mage having the name Fireball was a more complex joke to her. The person's face turned unpleasant as he said, "It's not a name I chose for myself." Hearing that this player was a member of the force to bear an undesirable IGN club like him, Gufei immediately felt a slight sense of closeness to him. He stopped Ziu's laughter as he continued to ask, "We're trying to get to Yagwang Village, do you know the way?" Master Kang looked at the two with shock. Appraisal doesn't work on either of you. You guys must have a higher level than me. Level 30, perhaps? The two nodded their heads. You guys are at level 30, yet you don't know how to get there? Master King began to regard them with suspicion. You're mistaken. We're not from Y City but from Yunjuan City, which is somewhere over there. Gu Fei pointed toward the direction of Yunjuan City as he explained. Master King's eyes suddenly shone brightly. Really? You're from another city? You actually traveled on foot from there to here? Which road did you take? How long did you walk? We trekked through the Oolong mountain range for 3 hours at a leisure pace. Gu Fei gave an overall answer. Come here. Let me ask you something. Master King pulled Gu Fei toward himself. In Yunjuan City, have you seen a plant with green leaves and pink, or rosy red, flowers? The leaves are about this big. Master King gave an estimated measurement with his hands. Nope. Gu Fei swiftly shook his head. Think this through first. Master King maintained a hopeful look at Gu Fei. Green leaves with pink or rosy red flower petals. I've seen some plants similar to your description but never one with leaves that big. So my answer is still no, Gu Fei said firmly as he made the same hand gesture. The leaf size that Master King had gestured was ridiculously huge. Gu Fei estimated that a plant with such large leaves would most likely be about a man's height, ergo, it should no longer be called a plant but a small tree instead. Gu Fei had definitely not seen something like that in all his travels. What sort of plant is that? Ziyu asked curiously. Oh, I'm an herbalist looking for the medicinal herb among others. Is either of you an herbalist? If you guys aren't, then there won't be any point in me sharing information about that plant. Gu Fei and Ziyu were no longer at a loss. Gu Fei, in particular, did not have much knowledge about the crafting profession except for the fact that there were currently 5 main types of it: chef, blacksmith, tailor, herbalist, and alchemist. Chef made food, blacksmith produced weapons, tailor sewed clothing, herbalist researched medicine, and alchemist crafted magic staves or similar equipment, as well as accessories. If possible, try to look for it yourself in Yunjuan City. Don't just take our words for it. After all, we're not experts when it comes to plants, Gu Fei advised. Master King nodded, yet his face showed worry. Yunjuan City may not be very far, but I heard that it's a very dangerous place. How so? Gu Fei felt puzzled. Heard that the top killer in the entire gaming server is in that city. He got 15 park points in a day from hunting a single player all over the city. He even caused that player to drop 8 levels, and yet no one dared to stop him. It's far too frightening, Master King said in a frightened voice. Gu Fei could only grimace in response, while Ziyu became upset. What did you say? Do you even know who that killer hunted? It's a rotten to the core swindler. Master King nodded his head. Heard about that as well. Hot damn. For that guy to take such extreme measures. He must have been cheated horribly by that swindler in the past. Gu Fei felt so mad that he almost fainted. How had the entire story become this twisted just by spreading beyond the Oolong mountain range? This in-game information had been spread through the online forums. How could it deviate so far from the truth when there was a centralized platform to clarify the validity of any in-game information or story? Gu Fei had actually forgotten to consider an important factor. Players might have spawned in different cities and regions, yet their connections in reality remain the same. It was very unlikely for 2 friends in reality to spawn in the same city in-game. So even if there were 10 Oolong mountain ranges between these people, they would not be able to prevent the 2 from exchanging information with each other. In fact, a majority of the players considered the account of their friends in Yunjuan City to be far more credible than the information that they could read online. Since many of them preferred passing information via the word-of-mouth route, they would naturally receive colorful versions of events, including that of Gu Fei's exciting activity yesterday. But now was not the time for Gu Fei to fuss over this matter with Master King, as the latter had yet to mention the way to Yaguang village after talking with him for so long. Alright, since I'm looking for herbs, it doesn't matter where I go. I'll bring you guys over to Yaguang village myself. Master King graciously offered. Many thanks, Gu Fei said. The 3 began to make their way to Yaguang village. Master King, who took the lead, would bend over from time to time to pluck some grass or herbs. As they slowly got closer to the more popular grinding maps, The players the three encountered gradually increased as well. The proportion of monsters to players also started to look similar to that infamous Yunliao farms. However, the rule that the players had set up here was somewhat different. Yunliao farm had the unspoken rule of no kill stealing between players. Yet it was the opposite in Y City. Players here openly fought with one another for the first kills over the monsters. Along the way, Gufei saw many players carrying crudely made bamboo pole flags with different scribbles on the cloth. These players would often holler, "This land here belongs to us. Death awaits those who trespass." Players, who could do such declarations, were backed by many others on the side. However, such declarations had no guarantee of working. This was because another group with more power could easily take down the flag to challenge the claim if the spot was to their fancy. Since leveling was not easy, Gufei noticed that everyone was actually not willing to fight to the death. Most groups tended to send out representatives to participate in a one-on-one bout, which would stop once a certain HP threshold was crossed. This way, the instances when players would drop level after dying happened a lot less than in Yunliao Farm. Naturally, the method was only effective if the two parties involved had the strength to clash at a team level. If a player attempted the challenge alone, he could only wait for his death. Gufei noticed their guide, Master King, had lost the spring in his steps as they were making their way through this map. Master King cautiously walked along the road with his head lowered, barely sparing a glance at the monsters around them. He was obviously very used to how things were here. Master King was truly a native of Y City. Only after passing through the map did Master King finally sigh in relief. As someone who had grown accustomed to how things were locally, he carefully explained to Gufei and Ziu, "I was worried that you two would accidentally cause a scene back there, since I forgot to mention how you guys should behave when in that area. It's a good thing that nothing happened." Gufei thought of something and asked, "If we die here, will we respawn back in Yunjuan City, or will we revive at the spawn point in Y City?" "I don't know as well," Master King answered as he pointed to somewhere in front of him. "Yaguang village is just ahead." "Thanks," Gufei hurriedly said. He could make out a tavern near the village's entrance. "Shall we head over? I'll treat you to a drink." "No need for that. I don't drink." Master King rejected the invitation with a wave of his hand. "I'm leaving. If you two need me for anything else, just message me. Call me when you're about to head back to Yunjuan City, and I'll join you guys if I can." "No problem." After adding one another as friends, Master King entered the forest nearby and continued looking for herbs. Gufei and Ziu entered Yaguang village, which was inside a forest. The dense leaves of the towering trees in the surroundings caused the sunlight to filter through with difficulty, casting scattered shadows all over the village. A great ambience permeated the air, as if a chain quest of great importance could originate from here. "What's your quest, Ziu?" Gufei wanted to finish off the easy quest first. "Find Mr. Adrian, and retrieve a batch of gold ore from him." Ziu read her mission aloud. "Let's do yours first," Gufei suggested. The two headed to the tavern as they conversed. Quests in online games were not very different from single-player RPGs, hence, places like a tavern were always the best to gather information. "Boss, do you know anyone called Mr. Adrian?" Ziu asked in a practiced tone. "Yes, Mr. Adrian is the wealthiest individual in the village. He lives in a big mansion beside the church over by the east side," the tavern owner answered. "Thank you, boss." Ziu maintained a polite tone despite the fact that she was talking to an AI. This was because her heart's passion to activate a hidden quest was strong. Once Ziu was done talking, Gufei also asked the tavern owner in a similar manner, "Boss, do you know anyone called Eddie?" "Mister, the road is long and hard. Why don't you have a drink to relieve your tiredness?" Gufei had no idea what went wrong. Ziu was much more experienced, so she immediately dragged Gufei off. "He doesn't know." As they walked to the east side of the village, Gufei kept on asking the locals the same question. However, none of them could give him the answer he wanted. Just what was going on? Gufei thought hard and realized the root of the issue. Eddie's emblem. Gufei kept the deceased Eddie's belonging into his pocket instead of wearing it. One of the conditions to trigger the quest was possibly equipping it. Without wearing it, NPCs would only see Gufei as a nonsensical person and would treat him just like any normal player. As he thought of this, Goofy silently pinned on the emblem and immediately felt countless eyes staring at him. Goofy steeled his nerves and headed toward the fifth NPC. Chapter 60, Are You the Chosen Hero? Goofy had been closely observing his surroundings ever since he arrived at Yagwang Village. He only felt comfortable enough to equip Eddie's emblem upon noticing that no other players were around. Almost all at once, the village NPCs, including the irrelevant ones that they had asked for directions previously, began to take note of his presence. Goofy became even more convinced that Eddie's emblem was the key factor for the quest after seeing their reaction. He braced himself and walked toward an NPC who was staring at him. And yet, that particular NPC walked away indifferently even before Goofy could get near him. Judging from his expression, he seemed to be trying to keep himself from coming into contact with Goofy. Goofy refused to accept this outcome, so he sped up and chased after the NPC. The NPC was obviously not programmed to run fast as Goofy caught up to him shortly. He swiftly blocked the NPC's path forward and was just about to say something, when the NPC avoided eye contact and headed another way. How very odd. Ziu found the sight very intriguing. As Ziu caught up to the NPC as well, she asked, "Do you know where Mr. Adrian is?" "Mr. Adrian is the wealthiest man in our village. He lives just beside the church." "It's that mansion over there." The NPC wore a friendly smile when interacting with her. He even gave Ziu detailed information about her target. "What's going on? Why is he ignoring you?" Ziu scratched her head. "Must have something to do with my quest's plot." Goofy said this while pondering on the same thing in his head. Parallel worlds NPCs did not possess sentience like human beings and were just hey.i.s programmed to function in certain ways. So when this particular villager was confronted with inquiries from Ziu, he still replied properly despite not possessing the exact answer. However, when Goofy was the one speaking to him or pulling at his hands, only one reaction would surface: the NPC turning around and avoiding all contacts with Goofy. This was a clear indication for Goofy that the NPCs were avoiding him on purpose. Goofy noticed as well that after leaving the NPC alone, the latter stopped walking at a certain distance and cautiously stole glances at him. Goofy looked around and saw that every NPC behaved in a similar way. Fortunately, a small portion of these NPCs remained the same even after he had equipped Eddie's emblem. Goofy thought of an idea and quickly approached one such NPC. As expected, the NPC did not avoid Goofy. The NPC even looked him in the eye as Goofy arrived by his side. "Any idea on who Eddie is?" Goofy asked. "No, but you should try asking the village chief. He is knowledgeable on a lot of things," the NPC answered. Goofy felt astounded for a moment. Afterward, he looked for another NPC with the same mannerism and received the same reply to the same question. "Who is the village chief?" Goofy asked a follow-up question. "Edwin is our village chief. He lives in a small hut by the woods." The NPC raised his hand and pointed at a direction as he answered Goofy. "Ah. You managed to obtain the answer to your question." That's how it is with quests. As long as you ask every NPC, there will surely be someone who knows the answer, the experienced Ziu lectured Goofy. While the method sounded dumb, the approach was undeniably logical. Goofy obtained the answer by asking the right NPCs after he had observed their different reactions. As for Ziu, she obtained the answer to her question not by observing the NPC's different reactions but by straightforwardly asking everyone available. The NPCs were either friendly or hostile toward Goofy. Why was the situation like this? It was probably something crucial to the current quest. Goofy could not think of any valid reason at the moment, so he could only follow the instruction given by the previous NPCs and visit the village chief in a small hut by the woods. After finding the hut, they knocked on its door. A bearded old man with gray hair opened the door and came out to meet them. The protagonists of games were usually designed to be young and promising. It would have been bizarre to hear about an old man saving the world in games. The elderly in games were usually old-fashioned, stubborn, timid, and clueless. Once in a while, a few wise ones with short lifespan would appear. Their roles involved either sacrificing their lives for plot advancement or fueling the resolution of protagonists. These were all common tropes in games. Village Chief Edwin, do you know of a guy called Eddie? Gufei asked with anticipation. He suddenly realized that doing quests could be very exciting due to this feeling of anticipation. Eddie? He's a nice young man. He made a promise to help our village before, Chief Edwin answered. He's dead, Gufei said sorrowfully. Chief Edwin was stunned. Then what? What should we do now? Is there anything that I can help you with? Gufei asked a cliché question. Who are you, by the way? Chief Edwin replied with a question. Well, I am. Gufei was at a loss on how to reply to that, so he could only tell the truth. Eddie sought me out for help. Chief Edwin's eyes glowed. Are you the chosen hero sought by Eddie to defeat the monster? Monster. Chosen hero. Sounds amazing. Gufei began to doubt if he could handle this quest at level 30. However, Chief Edwin's questions seemed as if it would determine whether Gufei could proceed with the quest or not. In any case, I can't just quit the quest. As Gufei pondered on, he nodded shyly. Yes, that's me. Welcome, oh, chosen hero. NPCs sure were amazing, seeing how easily Chief Edwin recovered from his grief over Eddie's death. Can you elaborate on what exactly is this monster you just mentioned? Gufei began to gather more information. He was thinking that he might still have a fighting chance if the monster was a close-range type and had a similar speed. This was a game, after all. The monsters were designed to be killed by players. They would not be ludicrously strong compared to the players, right? Follow me. Chief Edwin stepped outside and limped along the way. With his slow pace, Gufei and Ziu could only patiently follow behind him. Gufei saw how thrilled Ziu was, as if she was the one with the quest. Bringing along the two, Chief Edwin arrived at the church of Yeguang village. The door of the church was in poor condition. Half of it had fallen off the door frame and was barely hanging on its hinges. The pavement in front of the door appeared to have been neglected for a long time, as weeds were growing out in between the stone slabs. The two were walking alongside Chief Edwin on pathway paved with stones, when he stopped halfway and looked down on the ground. This right here. Chief Edwin tapped on the ground with his walking cane, is Murphy's blood stain. Years of rain could not get rid of it entirely. Gufei and Ziu lowered their heads and looked down. A dark stain could be seen on the stone slab Chief Edwin tapped on. According to him, it was caused by blood. What happened here? Gufei asked. Werewolf. Chief Edwin answered, a werewolf's hiding in our village. Werewolf. Gufei thought to himself, werewolves are ancient creatures that usually appeared in Western folklore. They are humans that can shapeshift into their true forms during the full moon, losing their sanity and becoming vicious in the process. What's more, werewolves that reveal their true forms are said to have heightened attack and speed. This quest might be a tough egg to crack if they also possess incredible speed in this game. As Gufei pondered on this, Chief Edwin busily babbled about the legend of werewolves inside the game. Ziu listened to him seriously, even taking out her little notebook to jot things down. Gufei's ability to think things was faster than Chief Edwin's chatter. After pondering through everything, he came back to the present just in time to hear Chief Edwin say, according to legends, werewolves are terrified of everything made of silver. Oh, chosen hero, do you have a weapon made of silver? No, Gufei answered. Worry not, for I have long prepared for this. Hand me your weapon, and I shall plate it with a layer of silver, Chief Edwin said. Can I do that later? I am thinking of looking for more clues about the werewolves first, Gufei said. You are welcome to find me anytime the need arises. Chief Edwin unsteadily tottered out of the church after he finished talking. Why didn't you let him plate your weapon with silver? Ziu asked. I'm thinking of getting a saber or sword for that. A magic staff might not be able to harm the werewolf seriously. Gufei took out his magic staff and showed it to Ziu, displaying its lack of a sharp edge. Ziu nodded her head and said, want to use my axe, instead? I don't think I can even wield it. Gufei replied. Although the in-game equipment was not restricted to job classes and stats, there were still requirements that players needed to meet. It was just that these requirements were not listed properly in the form of data. For example, the official statement meant mages were more than capable of equipping Ziu's huge axe, but wielding it was a different thing altogether. In a way, item usage was still dependent on a player's stats. Unfortunately, the crafty developers had chosen not to reveal how many stat points were needed to equip items for the different job classes. Oh, then, let's go buy a weapon you can wield. Ziu persuaded. I'll just go on my own. Didn't you mention earlier that you're looking for someone living in that mansion to get gold or something? Why don't you do that now? I'll go over there to join you once I finish my purchase, Gu Fei suggested. Okay. Ziu agreed. See you later. She waved her hand and headed toward the mansion near the church. With Ziu gone, Gu Fei quickly ran after Chief Edwin, who was still on his way back. Gu Fei took out flames of baptism once he had caught up to him. Chief Edwin, please plate this sword with silver. While Gu Fei doubted that the Ziu would recognize that the flames of baptism was the masked slayer's weapon yesterday, he still decided to play it safe and not show her the weapon in the meantime. Chief Edwin said nothing and took flames of baptism from Gu Fei. He pulled out a small vial of silver-colored liquid and poured it onto the blade of flames of baptism as he chanted arcane words, resulting in a silver glow. The overall color of the flames of baptism had not changed, but a thin silver coating could now be seen on the edge of the blade. Gu Fei, however, could not tell where it exactly was upon closer inspection. Oh, chosen hero, we are counting on you. Chief Edwin returned the flames of baptism to Gu Fei. Gu Fei focused his gaze on it. Flames of baptism had been renamed as Sacred Flames of Baptism. There was now a new trait besides the 30% fire attack proc rate, Nullify Regeneration.